Good afternoon and welcome to True Crime Mysteries. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about the tragic murder of Reyna Marroquin. But first, I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Thank you Surfshark for sponsoring this video. We will be talking a little bit more about them later. Without further ado, let's get into it. On September 2, 1999, Ronald Cohen and his family were moving out of their home at 67 Forest Drive in Jericho, Long Island. This included completing some final requests for the new owner. The main task was the removal of a 55-gallon oil barrel that was tucked away in a crawl space underneath an addition made to the home. The barrel had been there since Cohen had moved into the home. After hauling it out of the basement, he had left it to be picked up by sanitation workers, but they left it behind with a note saying that the 345-pound drum was too heavy for them to take. Cohen decided to open the container to examine its components for dumping, but was met with a horrific smell. Inside, he saw a hand and a woman's shoe sticking out of plastic pellets and a strange green liquid. He called the local authorities immediately. The body inside had been mummified due to the airtight seal on the drum. An autopsy revealed that the victim was a woman between the ages of 25 and 30 who had died roughly 30 years ago from blunt force trauma to the head and was either Caucasian or Hispanic. They also found that the unknown woman was 9 months pregnant with a baby boy. The medical examiner noticed that she also had dental work done that was not typical for the U.S. She had 2 gold crowns, and that led him to believe that she had likely been from somewhere in South America. Along with the body, the plastic pellets, and the green liquid, the drum had contained a badly damaged pocketbook, a note, an address book, a plastic flower stem, some rings, and a locket that said, "To Patrice, love from Uncle Paul," engraved on it. The note and the address book were in poor condition and unreadable. They were sent to the forensic lab to be dried and examined using a video spectral comparator, which manipulates light to make writing on paper that is no longer visible to the naked eye readable. During this process, the Nassau County Homicide Squad investigated previous homeowners as well as the origins of the drum. The house was built in 1957 and had only had 4 owners prior to the Cohen family: Howard Elkins, Arthur and Judith Eben, and Frank and Bernadette Samagi. With the exception of Howard Elkins, who denied any knowledge of the drum, all owners had said that they'd known that the drum was there but had denied knowing anything about the origins or its contents. They just basically said it was there with the home. According to Arthur Eben, the second owner, he said, "We did roll it into the corner and forgot about it, and it was out of sight, out of mind for 12 years. Howard Elkins told the New York Times that in 1966, he'd had an addition built to the house that created the crawl space the drum was found in, but when asked if he'd ever been into the crawl space, he said, "What for?" He could not recall the contractor's name who did the addition, and added that there was no one else that would have had access to the property beyond gardeners and maids. Police were also able to use the serial number on the drum to track down its origin to a chemical company in Linden, New Jersey. They were able to learn that the barrel had been made in March of 1963 and was used for holding paint and plastic pigments. The company was also able to identify the green chemical as dye used for concrete and plastics, including the base of the fake plastic plants like the one found in the barrel. And the plastic pellets were the same that were used to make the plastic plants themselves. Using the reports of the previous homeowners and the information gathered from the chemical company, They were able to determine that the murder had occurred between 1963 and 1972, a period of time when Howard Elkins owned the home. The police also learned that Elkins had been a partial owner of Melrose Plastics, a company that manufactured fake flowers and plants, which he sold in 1972 before he and his family moved to Florida. The police also received an anonymous phone call from someone who had heard about the case in the news. The tip confirmed that the dye was used at Melrose and that it was rumored that Elkins was having an affair with a Hispanic woman who worked at the factory. And right now I'd like to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Surfshark VPN. I actually love this VPN. I've been using it for a while, long before they asked to be a sponsor on this channel, and we used it a lot when we went out of town and we had to use public Wi-Fi. It is super affordable, really easy to use, and you can use one account to cover multiple devices. A VPN is a virtual private network. Much like firewalls protect your computer from attacks, VPNs protect your data online. It protects your data both at home and on the go when you access public Wi-Fis like at Starbucks or hotels. A VPN also allows you to bypass country restrictions. Did you know that different countries have different offerings on Netflix? I live in Canada and I use my VPN to get access to totally different content on the US Netflix. I also use a VPN to access content for research that has country restrictions, like news networks or platforms that are exclusive to the US. I turn on the VPN, set my location to a server in the US, and I'm able to access those web pages easily. Surfshark uses uncrackable encryption to secure your data. It will also conceal your IP address so not just anyone can see where you're located. It can also help prevent those pesky targeted ads, and Surfshark never logs your data. One subscription allows you to install and run Surfshark on an unlimited number of devices at the same time. It is available on all platforms: PC, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, smart TVs, Amazon Fire TV Stick, Apple TV, Chrome, Firefox, Xbox, and PlayStation. There is 24/7 live customer support available, as well as a 30-day money-back guarantee so you can try Surfshark risk-free. Use my link and enter the code TRUECRIME, all one word, for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring the channel. On September 9th, Detective Sergeant Edwards of the Nassau County Police went to Boca Raton, Florida to question Elkins, who was 71 at the time and living in a retirement home. Elkins admitted to having had a relationship with a woman from Melrose Plastics, but he couldn't give a name, a description, or explain the nature of the relationship. When they asked if they could do a DNA sample to do a paternity test for the fetus, Elkins refused, and according to Edwards, asked police to leave so he could discuss the matter with his wife privately when she returned home. At that point in time, he was not put into custody, but the detective said that they would come back with a warrant for his DNA. Detective Edwards then went to the West Palm Beach County District Attorney to obtain that warrant. But the next day, September 10th, Elkins was reported missing by his family. Before any warrant could be secured, he was found shortly after by his son in the garage of a neighbor's house. In the garage of a house Elkins was watching for a friend. Elkins had left the house and bought a shotgun and shot himself. No suicide note was found. Edwards said in an interview, he didn't have a lot of options if he was arrested. He was a man in his 70s. What was he going to do, spend the rest of his life in prison for a crime that had happened 30 years before? I don't know what went through his mind, but obviously it was something he didn't want to face up to. DNA was collected from Elkins' remains, and although the fetus had deteriorated much over the years, forensic scientists were able to extract a sample, and the test proved a positive paternity with a 99.93% certainty that the father of the fetus was Elkins. Although they had been able to determine the identity of the murderer, they still did not know the identity of the woman. All of Melrose Plastics' records had been destroyed, and tips had not been fruitful in securing any concrete information for the woman. At this point, forensic scientists had been able to gather a few names and numbers from the address book that had been found in the barrel. All of the numbers and addresses for people were no longer correct, except for one, Kathy Andrade. When police reached out to Kathy, she knew the identity of the woman in the barrel immediately. Kathy had been best friends with Reyna Marroquin before her disappearance and was able to fill in some of the blanks for authorities. Reyna had moved to New York in August of 1966 from the city of San Martin in El Salvador. She was hoping for a fresh new start after her marriage had failed due to her husband getting another woman pregnant. She had dreams of becoming successful, often telling her mother that she was going to be somebody someday. Once she was in New York, she had taken up residence in a Catholic home for single women and got a job at Melrose Plastics making plastic flowers. She was also studying fashion at the High School of Fashion Industries, as well as taking classes to gain citizenship and learn English. Reyna wrote back to her family often, detailing them of her new life in the US. Kathy was Reyna's English teacher, which is how they met. She described Reyna as full of life and eager to learn. She loved the city and often visited many museums. According to Kathy, Reyna had started acting weird in the months leading up to her disappearance, and when she pressed Reyna, she told Kathy that she was pregnant. Reyna would not name the father, but she did tell Kathy that he was married and already had kids. He had also set her up with a new apartment in New Jersey and with a private doctor. Reyna said that she expected the man to marry her, but as her due date grew closer, she lost confidence that he would follow through. In desperation, Reyna called the man's wife and told her that she was pregnant with her husband's baby. She then called Kathy in a panic, explaining what she had done and how the man had called her afterwards, saying that he was going to kill her. Kathy immediately went over to Reyna's apartment, but she found no one there. According to her, the door was ajar and there was warm food on the stove. It was winter, but Reyna's coat, gloves, and boots were still there. Kathy waited roughly 4 hours before deciding to take the matter to police. The police told Kathy that Reyna probably ran off with her boyfriend, and confirming that Kathy was not a relative, told her to come back in a week if she was still missing. 1969 was the last time anyone saw Reyna alive. According to detectives, it is believed that Elkins had lured Reyna to the factory after the phone call, where he'd beat her to death and then took her body back to his house in Long Island. They believe that after that he decided to put her body in the barrel with plans of sinking her remains in the ocean, which is why he filled the drum with plastic pellets, making sure that it was heavy enough to sink. It is then presumed that he overestimated the weight, and after sealing the container, he found it was too heavy to move. So instead, he pushed the barrel into the new crawl space and left it there. Oscar Corral, a reporter for the News Daily, was covering the case and flew to El Salvador to find Reyna's family.
In 1999, I was a reporter for Newsday covering crime. I covered this case extensively, and I eventually wrote a book about it. This case was very personal to me, not only because of the victim and who she was and how alone she was, but also because of the time that I took it on in my career. I was just starting out as a reporter, and I had to prove myself, so this case really weighed on me and stuck with me for the rest of my life.
He learned that her mother was still alive, and after finding her, she burst into tears as he explained why he was there. She was 95. After Reyna had left, she had stayed in contact with her family, writing to them often, until one day the letters stopped. According to Reyna Marroquin, Reyna's sister, they had put out announcements in El Salvadorian papers in hopes that someone might know something. Before Coral, they had all generally accepted that they would never know what happened to Reyna, but her mother had reported about having nightmares of Reyna being stuck inside a barrel. All we want is to bring her body back, and my mother, who is 95 years old, will finally be able to put her daughter to rest. My sister is with us. We will never forget her, said Dora. The body was flown back to El Salvador for burial. Her mother passed away a month later, and they were buried beside each other. The forensic scientists were able to determine what was written on the note inside the barrel. It read, "Don't be mad, I told the truth." Well, that is going to be it for this video. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe for more if you haven't already. If you've done all that and want to support me in the channel, we have channel membership as well as Patreon to get early access to members-only content and more. We also have merch and other goodies in the description box and links to all my socials. But until then, I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.